What's up, guys? Revenge here, and today we're going to be going over booleans and voids. So within Java, there's two things. There's booleans and there's voids. It's really quite a simple concept, and something that it's pretty easy to go over with, actually. So I just delete this. Okay, so a boolean, unlike a void, is something that must return a value. If you don't understand what that means, I'll show you in a second an example of. But a boolean must return something. It must return a value. Not necessarily true false, but I'd have to say generally it is true false. A void is almost like, I want to compare it to a shopping list, where it's kind of just listing what you want the script to do in just one list, and it doesn't have to return any values. It doesn't return true, it doesn't return false. It simply lists what you need to do. So if you need, say you want the script to bank, and you have just the methods, you made 3 methods for it to open the bank and close the bank, you can make a void that just puts them all together. And I find voids are very helpful for just compacting things in the loop. So you don't have to write 1,000 different things, you just have to write one thing. Booleans are almost like checks, and you return values on booleans to get you can return them false if you want them not to be true. You can return them true if you want them to be true. And then there's the cases where they will happen, but it won't always happen. And that's probably the most reoccurring case for booleans. And it doesn't necessarily... There's booleans that have already been created by RSBuddy that you use, such as click mouse. Whereas you have to define it true or false, because you can click the mouse, if you click the mouse true, if it equals true, if it returns true, sorry, then you're left-clicking it, I believe, and if you return it false, you're right-clicking it. So, things like that. But to make a boolean, we're going to first start off with private boolean, we'll say tutorial, or just equals, sorry, what am I doing? Okay, so here's a boolean. Now, currently it's telling me that I need to either remove the or give it a value. So if we turn it true, because I can't type today. Return true. So now, the yellow is just meaning that it doesn't necessarily affect your script, it's simply saying that it's not used within the loop. So, currently, we have the boolean and it returns true. So now in this boolean, let's have the script, we'll have it check if you can cast a spell, because I was just doing this. I was making a script that I have. So you'd make if statement. If statements are simply saying that if this is happening, you give an example of a case that could be happening, and if it's happening, it returns true. If it's not, it's false. So if, we'll say, if inventory.is full. Okay, so right now what we're doing, I'm going to click on this one because it's tabs.inventory, and this one's depreciated. So what I just did was I wrote inventory because this is the class that's on that Java doc I showed you. So inventory is the class, and isFull is a method that RSBuddy's already made for that class. And right now all I'm saying is if inventory.isFull. So if the inventory is full, and we're going to make that one bracket, and then because I'm using Eclipse, I can just hit enter, and it closes it, but you need these 2 brackets. These 2 brackets just are saying that in between this is the if statement that we said. What happens if the inventory is full is what happens in between these 2 brackets. This bracket sign is found, it's right next to the P, and the other one's right next to the one next to the thing. So, if inventory is full, so if the inventory is full, we'll do inventory dot drop. We'll make it drop all except an int, and we'll make it drop all except x. So this would be for a woodcutting script, and make the int x. We'll say 10. Okay, so right now I have the script dropping, if the inventory is full, drop everything but the x. So we're going to return that true within the brackets, because if the inventory is full, drop it everything but the x and return true. But then there's always that case where you need to, when the inventory is not full. What happens if the inventory is not full? And that's where you'd write right here, return false. So the script knows that if the inventory is full, you drop all but the x and return that true, because that's true. If the inventory is full, you gotta drop everything, or else, you know, sitting there with stuff in your inventory, that's not cool, bro. But if it's not full, you don't want to drop everything, because that'd be quite pointless. So this is just a basic Boolean. It returns true and false because there's times where this is occurring and where it's not occurring. Just make sure that it's not in the same bracket, or it'll throw errors. So here, if inventory is full, inventory drop all except x, return true, and then on this bracket, return it false. And there's also another type of Boolean, which you don't give almost parameters for it, because the parameters are already made by RSBuddy. So we'll make a chest. Private final int chest equals 12. Again, you have to get the object ID. But okay, so we made chest. Now in our loop, we'll make a game object. We'll go over game objects in a little while, but I'm just showing you this for the sake of the doClick method. Game object, we have to import that. Chest equals objects.getNearest. Chest ID. I need a chest ID. Okay, so to import the game object. Okay, so right now I just created a object chest. So now it has to be done in your loop. You can't do it outside your loop because it always continuously looks for chest. And what it's doing is taking the int chest ID, the int stored in your, the number stored in your int chest ID, and looking for it on the screen as an object. That's all this is doing. So now I could actually use this to call on the chest, and it wouldn't just be, because you can't click on an int, you have to click on the chest, so you make it a game object. So now everywhere in our script we define it as chest, because chest ID became chest when we made it a game object. So chest dot click, and it's a Boolean. So you can't just say chest.click. You have to put, if you returned it true, it's left clicking. But if you returned it false, this means you want to right click the chest. And this is just a good example of how it's not always the simple Boolean that I showed you here. It sometimes can be simple as this, or you can make Booleans like this. And then, later on in your script, And then later on in your script, you can define it almost as when you want it to become true or false. So need ring, we'd set it equal to false, because you're not always going to need the ring in your script. But then somewhere in your script, if you give an example where it equals true, you can then call upon it and check if need ring equals true, if that makes sense. So we'll make a void if private, here's a good example of a void. Private void need ring check. So what all this is doing is checking if you need the ring, but that's all I named it as. So we made a void called need ring check. If, and then make parameters, of course. Make an if statement asking if inventory dot contains ring. So if the inventory does not contain a ring, we want to get a ring. So we return this. We don't need to return voids, but we're going to return this true because we're going to give this as an example, as a case that need ring equals true. So we have to make an int. Okay, so all we did here was just have a case where need ring equals true in a void, not returning the void true or false, but actually making a Boolean that the case returns true and all the other cases return false. So if you only want it to happen when your inventory does not contain a ring, you set it true. And now anytime in your script you could say if need ring equals true. And again, all this is really complicated, but we'll go over this, why you put two equal signs and more on the if statements. I think we're going to do more on the voids too, because I didn't really cover it too well. But this has been mostly Boolean tutorial, and I'll make a new tutorial on voids right after this to cover voids a little bit better. And I think we'll also do more on the if statements, because that's all what scripting is. It's if that if do this, then do this, else do this, things like that. Well, thank you very much for watching. Our next tutorial will be on voids, I think. We'll be more on voids and if statements. Thank you for watching. See you later.